Sukai's mother breaks her silence, the heart-shattering confession that shook the entire family. Why did Sukai's mother choose this exact moment to step into the spotlight and reveal the truth she had carried for years? A truth so heavy that it reshaped not only the way fans saw her son but also the way her own family understood the foundation they had been built upon? Why did she wait until now, after so many seasons of silence, after countless interviews where her voice trembled but never cracked, after watching her son rise into superstardom while holding something so profound, so personal, and so irreversible inside her chest that she feared it would fracture the entire family if spoken too soon? These questions echo through every corner of the story, because the revelation she made did not land softly, it struck like thunder, deep and resonant, shaking everything and everyone around her. Hold on tight, C-Drama family. The world of your favorite celebrities is unfolding before your eyes, and every moment is more breathtaking than the last. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now, because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. It began quietly, almost too quietly for the magnitude of what was about to unfold. Sukai's mother had agreed to a private conversation in her home, not a polished television interview, not a staged documentary setting, but a simple, honest gathering in her living room, curtains pulled halfway, soft afternoon light drifting across the floor, the air carrying that stillness that sits on the edge of something seismic. She sat across from her sister first, her hands trembling slightly as she held a small ceramic teacup, the steam rising between them like a veil that separated truth from fear. Her sister watched her carefully, sensing the storm beneath her composed exterior, knowing her well enough to feel that this was not a moment to interrupt, not a moment to rush, but a moment to allow the silence to stretch until the truth felt ready to breathe. When Sukai arrived shortly afterward, still in casual clothing from a break in his schedule, he immediately sensed something in the room that felt heavier than anything fame had ever brought him. He paused at the doorway, scanning his mother's expression, noticing the way her shoulders curved inward, the way her eyes avoided his for a second too long. He had seen her worried. He had seen her proud. He had seen her exhausted. But this was something else, something older, something deeper, something that had been waiting for a very long time. He approached her slowly, gently, asking what had happened, his voice soft but filled with concern. His mother placed her teacup down with great care, as though the slightest clatter might break her already fragile composure. What she said next was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was not delivered with trembling theatrics meant to shock. Instead, her voice was quiet, steady, and heartbreakingly sincere, carrying the weight of years of unspoken pain. She confessed that there had been a secret she kept since the earliest years of Sukai's childhood, a truth she felt unprepared to reveal, a truth she feared would alter the way he viewed himself and everything he believed about their family. She explained how she had carried this burden through every stage of his life, through the struggles, the triumphs, the uncertainty of his early career, and the explosive fame that followed. And as she spoke, her words filled the room like a slow, unstoppable tide, drawing everyone deeper into the story she had buried in her heart. Sukai listened without moving. He didn't interrupt. He didn't question. He simply absorbed each word with a stillness that came from instinctive understanding that this was not a moment for reaction but for reception. His mother's voice grew softer as she described the years of guilt, the nights she lay awake fearing that the truth, if revealed at the wrong time, would dismantle the fragile balance of their family. She spoke of decisions made when she was young, when fear and desperation clouded judgment, when protecting her children felt like navigating through fog, and every step was both necessary and haunting. Then came the moment, the revelation itself. It hung in the air like a trembling cord, vibrating through the silence. The confession was deeply personal, tied to the roots of their family history, tied to the sacrifices she had made, tied to the emotional wounds she had concealed, wounds she feared would reopen in her children if exposed too soon. She revealed that the foundation of their family was not as straightforward as Sukai had believed. Choices had been made that altered the trajectory of their lives long before he became the public figure millions admired. And those choices were now catching up with her, pressing against her conscience until she could no longer hold them alone. Sukai's breath faltered. His sister pressed a hand to her mouth. The room grew so still it felt suspended outside of time. But the confession did not end with revelation. His mother continued, explaining how her silence came not from selfishness but from love, from her belief that a child deserved stability, even if the truth rested beneath it like a fragile secret. She admitted the guilt that had followed her every year, the weight she carried each time she watched Sukai succeed, knowing the foundation of his identity was built upon a story he did not fully know. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks, not loud sobs, but the silent kind that revealed decades of emotional erosion. Sukai finally reached out. His hand found hers. He didn't speak at first, because the truth was too enormous, too tender, too newly unveiled to be met with immediate resolution. Instead, he held her hand with a firm, grounding presence, his silence saying what words could not, that he was listening, that he was absorbing, that he was still her son. Only then did he whisper a single sentence, not of anger, not of confusion, but of recognition, that the pain she carried had been too heavy for one person, and he wished she had let him carry it with her sooner. The family gathered closer around her. The confession spread through them like a slow-burning fuse, illuminating old memories, reframing past moments, reshaping their understanding of who they were and how they had survived. Outside, life continued without pause, unaware of the fracture and quiet healing happening within those four walls. But inside, the truth settled into the air, changing the atmosphere, changing the relationships, changing the family forever. And this was only the beginning of the storm her confession would unleash. The moment Sukai's mother finished speaking, the entire room fell into a silence so heavy it seemed to bend the walls inward, a silence thick with disbelief, hurt, and the weight of secrets that had been buried for far too long. No one moved. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to slow, as though time itself was trying to understand the magnitude of what had just been revealed. Tan Songyun sat frozen on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes glossy with shock, confusion, and a quiet ache she tried desperately to hide. Sukai stood near the window, one hand braced against the glass, his shoulders rising and falling with the kind of controlled breathing people use when they are 1 second away from falling apart. His mother's confession had not been soft or hesitant, it had come out in a wave of truth so raw, so unexpected, that it left everyone stripped bare. Her voice had trembled only slightly as she revealed the secret she had carried for years, a secret born out of fear, protection, and the complicated love of a parent who believed she was doing the right thing, even when her decisions carved invisible wounds into the people around her. She had spoken of the pressure of fame, of watching her son rise at a pace she could barely comprehend, of the anxiety that consumed her whenever he seemed overwhelmed, or exhausted, or heartbroken. She spoke of the moment she realized how deeply he cared for Tan Songyun, and how terrified she became, not because she doubted their love, but because she feared the world would destroy it before it had a chance to survive. The admission that followed pierced the air like shattered glass. She had interfered. Not to sabotage, not to hurt, not to separate them out of cruelty or pride, but out of the overwhelming belief that she was protecting her son from a future she thought might break him. She confessed to conversations she should not have had, warnings she delivered with a mother's trembling hands, urging Songyun to step carefully, stay distant, keep boundaries, because she feared that Sukai's emotional vulnerability would be cracked open in the brutal arena of public scrutiny. She had underestimated the strength of their bond, underestimated their resilience, underestimated the fact that love, real love, cannot be bent or guided like a fragile ornament. The moment her words stopped, Sukai turned from the window, his face pale, his expression unreadable, a storm of emotions flickering in his eyes as he struggled to process the revelation that his own mother, the woman who had supported him through every milestone, every heartbreak, every victory, had been the one quietly placing walls between him and the woman he loved. His voice, when it finally emerged, was low, controlled, almost frightening in its calmness. He asked her why she had kept this hidden, why she had not trusted him enough to share her fears, why she had allowed silence to stretch into distances he couldn't understand. But beneath the questions was something deeper, a wound, a quiet hurt that only a mother could inflict by accident. She tried to explain, her voice cracking, her hands trembling in her lap as she admitted that she had been afraid he would choose love over stability, feelings over career, And in her desperation to protect him from pain, she had created an even deeper one.